I don't usually eavesdrop on conversations, but something compelled me to listen this time. It was a typical Sunday afternoon, and I was in the basement working on the hot water heater when the phone rang. I had no idea what my wife, Daphne, was doing upstairs, but since the basement phone was within reach, I picked it up. Before I could say anything, I overheard my wife on the extension upstairs. "Jasper, you shouldn't have called here. What if Robert had answered the phone?" "I would have just said it was work-related. Don't be such a worrywart. I wanted to let you know everything is set for tomorrow. We'll be at the Desca Motel, room 117. Be there at 1 p.m. sharp. I'll have a bottle of wine chilling and some fresh strawberries. Don't forget to wear that black silk underwear you mentioned." "Okay, just make sure no one sees us leaving or coming back together." "You sound nervous. Are you having second thoughts?" No. I'm just a little scared. I've never done anything like this before, and it's only natural to be worried. I'm not going to change my mind." "Everything will be fine, I promise." "Okay, but if Robert ever found out, I would kill myself. I need to go before he overhears something. See you tomorrow at 1 p.m. sharp. Bye." I hung up just as they did and sat there for about 10 minutes, replaying the conversation in my head. Why on earth did I have to pick up that phone? Daphne and I had known each other all our lives and married just a year after high school. She was the only woman I'd ever been with, and I thought I was the only man she had ever been with. She was still attractive and in great shape. We had one son, Soren, who was a senior in high school. We lived a quiet life, mostly centered around each other. I believed everything was fine between us, but apparently I was mistaken. I decided against draining the hot water heater after all. Instead, I reached for a beer from the basement refrigerator to dull the ache. As I sat there sipping, I considered my options. First, I could confront her head-on, which would undoubtedly lead to a dramatic and emotional scene. I didn't relish that thought. Second, I could drop subtle hints or make suspicious remarks to let her know I was aware. This option seemed slightly better, but would likely just postpone the inevitable. The third option was to let her go through with her plan, with a twist. I decided to allow everything to proceed as intended, but at the last moment, I would give her a chance to back out. If she took it, all would be fine. If not, I would have to confront the situation. Considering Daphne's choices, there were 3 possible outcomes. She could change her mind on her own and back out, though I doubted this was likely. The second was that she might take advantage of the last chance I'd offer her, a hopeful but uncertain maybe. The third and most probable outcome was that she would go through with it. As much as I hated to admit it, this seemed the most likely. Having sorted that out, I felt ready to plan my approach. The situation was beginning to feel like a game, and oddly, the more I thought about it, the more energized I became. After dinner, I intended to start planning seriously. First, I needed to gather information, then lay out a detailed strategy. I had worked for a security systems firm for nearly 20 years, and for the last year, they had been pushing me to take over the Huntsville, Alabama office. Daphne, however, was against moving. She had been successful in her insurance company job for the past decade, but I had never liked her coworker, Jasper Starling. Now, I understood why my instincts about him were right. He was married, and although his wife seemed nice enough, he clearly wanted mine too. Moving to Alabama could have been great for our son Soren, as he had his heart set on attending Auburn. The in-state tuition was far more affordable than the non-resident rate. During supper, I made up my mind to accept the position in Huntsville. Regardless of what transpired the following day, I was committed to the move. Once I arrived, I could file for a declaration of domicile, ensuring Soren would qualify for resident tuition when he started school. I didn't feel the need to inform Daphne just yet, but decided I'd mention it to Soren after we finished eating. The next morning, I'd hand in my notice at work and start packing for the move. With that decision made, the rest of my plans seemed simpler. Soren and I had a good relationship, and when I discussed moving to Alabama ahead of the family, he thought it was a smart idea. He agreed to keep the plan a secret from his mother. I didn't tell him about Daphne's intentions for the next day. I still hadn't figured out exactly what I was going to do, but I felt confident everything would come together by nightfall. I told Daphne I needed to run an errand to Home Depot and headed out. My first stop was to buy a disposable cell phone with a 60-minute calling card. I had several calls to make, some of which I didn't want traced. Then, I visited my favorite dive bar to see if I could enlist some help from old school friends with a dubious reputation. For $400, I managed to buy 2 big bags of low-grade marijuana. My old pal Orion warned that possessing such a quantity could get me charged with dealing, but I told him that was exactly what I was counting on. Before leaving, I borrowed a cardboard Jimmy rod. In the bar, I noticed Talon Nightingale, a notorious tough guy whom everyone avoided. He drove a Corvette, which I saw parked outside. Armed with a screwdriver from my car, I quickly removed Talon's license plate. I knew where he worked and planned to call him the next morning. My final stop was the Desca Motel. In the lobby, I browsed the rack of tourist brochures and restaurant guides, taking what I needed. The receptionist provided information about the motel, including a map and phone numbers for housekeeping and room service. With everything in place, it was time to head home. When I arrived home, Daphne was watching TV. I told her I needed to get some work done in the office, and she mentioned she was going to shower and head to bed early because she had a busy day ahead. While she was in the shower, I opened her briefcase and took out her planner and telephone notebook. I spent the next half hour copying names and phone numbers. Then came the tedious task of entering all those numbers into the speed dial of both the throwaway phone and my own. I also looked up a few additional numbers in the phone book. Once I was done, I felt somewhat prepared and finally crashed on the office couch. It was a rough night, filled with thoughts of what Daphne might be planning and worries about what I had done wrong to make her feel this way. By the time I managed to fall asleep, I had convinced myself that it was somehow my fault. Morning brought a mix of emotions. I made coffee and set the breakfast table. Daphne came downstairs looking fantastic. "You look great today. Special day at the office?" I asked. "What do you mean?" "I always look good," she replied. "I know. Just teasing you a bit." We read the newspaper while eating. The conversation was minimal, but not enough to raise any suspicions. I couldn't tell if she was nervous or anxious. "I had a lot of errands today. I might be a bit late for supper," I said. "That's fine. I'll make something that can wait until you get home. Anything special you want?" "No, whatever's handy is fine." Our attempt at small talk was painfully awkward. We both knew what was going on and were tiptoeing around it. I arrived at work early and finalized the arrangements for my transfer at Huntsville. After signing all the necessary papers and cleaning out my desk, I went to a divorce attorney's office to get the forms and information I needed just in case my plan didn't work out. I went home, packed my clothes, loaded them into the car, removed the hard drive from my computer, and gathered all the files and documents I might need. Most of our savings and investments had been converted into valuable coins, which I also took. The banks were open by then, so I closed our accounts and canceled the credit cards. I realized I might be acting prematurely, but I had little faith in a change of heart from Daphne. Lastly, I stopped by a florist and ordered a dozen red roses to be delivered precisely at 1:15 p.m. Throughout this ordeal, I kept a close eye on my watch, knowing timing was crucial. Around 12:30, I drove to the motel and secured a discreet parking spot with a clear view of the room but out of sight. I meticulously arranged everything I needed on the front seat of my car. Shortly after, Jasper arrived. He exited his car carrying a grocery bag, presumably containing strawberries, a bottle of wine, and who knows what else. He went straight to the room, then came back out to fill the ice bucket. As he prepared the room, I began making my phone calls. First, I dialed Pizza Hut. "Hello, I'd like to order a large pepperoni pizza to be delivered to room 117 at the Desca Motel. I might be in the shower, so make sure the delivery person knocks loudly and persistently. 20 minutes is fine. Thanks." Next, I called Papa John's, followed by Domino's and Godfather's Pizza. My fifth call was to the Golden Dragon, where I ordered egg rolls and sweet and sour pork. I expected half of these places to call back to verify the order, but that was fine. The disruption would still serve its purpose. Daphne hadn't arrived yet, so my next call was to the motel housekeeping. I requested additional towels and another ice bucket, estimating it would take them about 15 minutes to deliver. Finally, my wife pulled into the parking lot. She parked at the far end of the building to make her car less noticeable. Carrying a small overnight bag, she approached the room. When she was about 20 feet from the door, I called her using speed dial. "Hi, honey, it's just me," I said. "Robert, is something wrong?" "You don't usually call me at work in the middle of the day," she responded, clearly surprised. "I was just thinking about you and wanted to tell you that I love you." "Oh, Robert, that's sweet. I love you too." "Okay, I'll let you get back to work. I'll see you later. Bye." "Goodbye, Robert, and thanks for the call." Daphne hung up her cell phone, turned around, and walked into the motel room. That was her last chance, and she made her decision. A tear welled up in my eye as I resumed my telephone blitz. Phone call number 7 was to the local TV station. "Hi, is this WWC-TV? There's something bizarre happening at the Desca Motel. If you have a truck nearby, you might want to swing by and check it out." "No, I don't know exactly what's going on, but the cops are on the way." "Okay, thanks." As I walked over to Jasper's car, I made call number 8. Fortunately, he had parked in a spot where I wouldn't be noticed as I replaced his license plate with the one from Talon's Corvette. On the way, I called Daphne's office. She had a 3 o'clock appointment with someone named Roderick Starling. "Hi, this is Roderick Starling. I have an appointment with Daphne Harris at 3, but I need to move it up. Can you please have her call me as soon as possible at 961-4452? I tried reaching her on her cell, but it was busy. As soon as possible, please." That number was for a recorded ad from a law firm specializing in divorces. After swapping the license plates, I tossed Jasper's original plate under his car. Then I walked over to Daphne's car and moved it to the back of the motel. On my way back to my vehicle, I dialed the next number. "Hello, Mrs. Starling. Your husband asked me to give you a call. He's having car trouble and needs you to pick him up right away. He's at the Desca Motel, room 117. You could call him on his cell phone or just ring the room at 961-7700, extension 117. No, I don't know why he didn't call you himself. It looks like he's meeting with a client. A pretty one, too. Bye." Call number 10 went to Acme Welding, where I informed Talon's boss about a white Honda in the Desca Motel parking lot that had Talon's license plate on it. The next call was to the police. I reported seeing 2 kids changing a license plate on a car in the motel parking lot and mentioned that something didn't seem right. I gave them Talon's license number for reference. The first pizza delivery arrived at the room. It looked like there was an argument, but ultimately, Jasper paid and the delivery guy left. Call number 12 was to Daphne's mother. "Hi, Mom, it's Robert. I don't have much time. Daphne is in a motel room having an affair with a man she works with. Can you please call her and ask her to reconsider what she's doing?" "No, I can't talk about it now." "You have her cell phone number, and if you can't reach her there, try the motel at 961-7700, extension 117. I know it's terrible, but I need to go. Please make the call now. Bye." 2 more pizza delivery guys showed up at the room around the same time the maid came with more towels. There was a lot of discussion at the door again, but after a few minutes they all left. The next call was to the motel front desk. "This is Mr. Starling in room 117. My bathroom sink is leaking at the base of the faucet, and water is starting to get on the carpet. Can you send someone over right away? Thank you." A big Harley roared into the parking lot, cruising slowly down the line of cars. Talon stopped right behind Jasper's car, but before he could do anything, a police car pulled up. The biker and the cop were having a heated discussion as I made my next phone call. "Mr. Ashford, this is Robert Harris. My wife Daphne works for you." "Yes, thank you. I know she's a good worker. However, right now she is at the Desca Motel in room 117 with Jasper Starling, who also works for you. They're having an affair as we speak. Yes, I am sure. You have a company policy against this sort of thing, correct? I am sure you have their cell phone numbers. Would you please call them to verify or deny this? If you can't get through, call the motel at 961-7700, extension 117. I don't want my wife working for your company anymore, Mr. Ashford, and I would appreciate it if you let her go. If it's a policy violation, you, Mr. Starling, should also be let go. No, I am sorry I had to notify you. Thank you for your time. Goodbye. An Oriental restaurant delivery man was at the motel door. The cop headed towards the room, while Talon was waving his arms and yelling as he walked alongside him. Call number 15 went to Daphne's sister. Hello, Evelina, this is Robert. How are you? Listen, I'm in a bit of a situation. Daphne is in a motel room with a guy she works with, and on my way home to get my router. I plan to come back and shoot them both, but I don't want the police or reporters to find Daphne unclothed. Could you please call her and tell her to get dressed before I return? I'd really appreciate it. She's in room 117 at the Desca Motel. If you can't reach her on her cell, call the room directly. By the way, I moved her car to the back of the motel, so she might not be able to drive. Maybe you should just drive over there and pick her up. If you get there before I do, you might want to take her home. I'm sorry, but I can't talk now. Thanks for your help. Call as soon as you can, okay? The scene at the motel door was intense. The maintenance guy had shown up to fix the sink. The delivery man was trying to get paid, while Talon and the cop were talking to Jasper. A florist was there, attempting to deliver roses without much luck. It was time for me to leave. My work here was done. As I was leaving, I passed a TV crew. I still had 2 bags of grass in the car and wasn't sure what to do with them. I considered planting them in Jasper's car, but decided against it. Instead, I tossed the cell phone and the grass into the river on my way home. I stopped by the house briefly to say goodbye to Soren. I told him I would keep in touch, and to avoid giving his mother a hard time for the next few days. I would have given anything to know what was happening in that motel room over the past hour. As I was leaving town, I made one more call. I wasn't sure if I'd get through, but I tried just in case. Hi, Jasper Starling? This is Robert Harris. Just wanted to let you know, if you lay one hand on my wife, I will rip off your balls and jam them down your throat. Do you understand? There was a weak response on the other end. Yes, I understand. I hung up and hit the interstate. About 8 hours later, my cell rang. Caller ID showed it was Daphne. Hello. Robert, where are you? I'm on I-81, just outside of Knoxville. Why? Robert, what's going on? We need to talk. We have nothing to talk about, Daphne. Please, Robert, talk to me. Daphne, I'll ask you 3 questions, okay? Give me straight answers, and then we can talk. Okay. What did I say to you when I called you earlier today? You said, I love you. What did you do after we hung up? There was a brief pause. I went into the motel room. Why did you go into the motel room? There was no response. Daphne, answer me. Why did you go into the motel room? Another pause ensued. Robert, I don't want to answer that. Goodbye, Daphne. I hung up and turned off my cell phone. I wouldn't need it for the rest of the trip. Since the company was covering all the moving expenses, I treated myself to a fairly nice motel room and had a great dinner. I needed to establish residency quickly, so I spent the next 2 days searching for an apartment. It was easy to find something decent and reasonably priced because I wasn't too picky. My next steps included setting up new phone service and securing a mailing address. I changed the title on the car and got a new driver's license. I registered to vote and filled out the declaration of domicile. I mailed in all the necessary papers to get the divorce started. Everything went smoothly, and soon I was ready to start my new job. I called Soren and gave him my new cell number. I asked him not to give it to his mother, but told him I would understand if she pressured him. He didn't think it would be a problem. He mentioned that she had lost her job and was very depressed. I asked if they needed anything, and he said they were fine. Soren was my only real contact with my old life. A few weeks later, he informed me that Daphne had received the divorce papers from the lawyer. She signed them and sent them back the same day without even reading them. She had stopped wearing makeup and started selling off a lot of her clothes and jewelry. She held yard sales every other week, selling anything that wasn't nailed down. I had given the lawyer power of attorney to sell the house whenever she wanted to. I didn't want anything from the sale. She took a job at a bakery close to the house. Just before Soren finished high school, Daphne put the house on the market. She set the price so low that it sold almost immediately. The sale was conditional on her and Soren staying in the house until he graduated, a condition the buyers readily agreed to. Daphne found an apartment within walking distance of the bakery and gave Soren the car for college. The apartment was a small second-floor flat, and any furniture she didn't need was left in the house. Soren helped her move before leaving for Auburn. By then, she had disposed of almost everything from the old house. Soren described the apartment as sparse, like a monk's room in a monastery. While his mother had always provided for him, she was now depriving herself of nearly everything. I could tell he was worried about her. 4 years passed quickly. It was a 4-hour drive to Auburn from my place, so I didn't get to see much of my son. He was busy with school and friends, and I was consumed with work. After the sale of the house, Daphne had the title company send me a check for the entire amount. She kept nothing. I cashed it and placed the money in a folder set aside for her. I bought a small house and spent most of my time on home improvement projects. I didn't date or engage in social activities. I longed for companionship but wasn't interested in getting close to anyone. Graduation day arrived, and I drove down to watch Soren receive his diploma. We had assigned seats for the ceremony, and Daphne's was next to mine. I was glad to see her, despite the way we had separated. She looked good, though tired. She appeared a little older, and the lack of makeup and grooming made her seem slightly sad. We smiled at each other and exchanged greetings. As they began handing out diplomas, there wasn't much time for small talk, and I don't think either of us knew what to say anyway. The ceremony ended too soon. The awkwardness was broken when Soren approached us, excited about his degree and talking a mile a minute. It was wonderful to see him bask in his moment of glory. A few of his friends came over to introduce themselves, and then the whole group left for Gulf Shores to celebrate. Daphne and I were left alone together. "How did you get here?" I asked, trying to break the ice. "I took the bus. I have a round-trip ticket and need to get back to the station by 6. Can you give me a ride?" "No problem. How soon do you need to be back?" "I took the week off, but I can't stay here. I guess I'll head back tonight and spend the rest of the week painting my apartment." "Sounds like fun," I said. "What's my alternative?" She laughed. "You could stay at my place for a few days. I could even drive you back home from there if you prefer. It's better than the bus." "Anything is better than the bus. But I don't think staying at your place would be a good idea. It would be too difficult for both of us." "We never really talked. I was mad back then and cut you off. I didn't give you a chance to explain anything, and I felt bad about that for the past few years." "You mean you want me to explain now, after our lives have been turned upside down?" "Is it too late?" "I think so. What could I say now that would make things right? You wouldn't listen back then. Why would you listen now?" "I can't answer that. Even if we don't talk, I think I'd still enjoy your company for a few days. Are you sure you can't spare some time? I took a week's vacation as well." "Do you have any luggage?" "No, just what I'm wearing. I wasn't planning on staying overnight. We can stop at Walmart, and I'll get you a couple of changes of clothes. It's a 4-hour drive, and I'd really enjoy the company." I can't see anything good coming from this, but I'll give it a try. If you do anything to upset me, I promise I'll walk away without a second thought. "Fair enough. My car is this way." For the first few miles, we didn't say much. We stopped near Birmingham, where I got her some underwear, slacks, and a few tops. I also persuaded her to get a pair of sneakers, though she refused to buy any makeup. I didn't push it, just hinted. A bit further up the road, we had supper at a Cracker Barrel. She always liked eating there. We were cruising up I-65 at a steady pace when she suddenly spoke up. "To make love." I glanced over at her. "To make love?" "The answer to your last question was to make love. I couldn't say it when you asked me that day. I don't know why. Maybe I was too embarrassed or I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I just couldn't bring myself to say it out loud. After you hung up, I realized you already knew, and it was stupid of me to deny it. I tried to call you back, but you had turned your cell phone off. That's when I knew my life had ended. You broke my heart. I know, and I don't know how to make it right. I've lain awake so many nights trying to figure out how to make up for it, but I can't come up with anything. After a few years, I decided there was nothing I could do to make things better. I couldn't think of a response. She seemed to be doing fine by herself. If you knew what was going on, why didn't you stop it? I couldn't stop it. Only you could do that. You could have said something. No. If you had known that I knew, you would have stopped for the wrong reasons. Knowing you were caught or might be caught wasn't a good reason to end it. You had to stop because you knew it was wrong, not because you were going to get caught. Am I making sense? Yes, you are, but I still wish you would have said something. I did. Remember the last phone call? You mean the one where you said you loved me? That's right. I felt the call gave you the opportunity to stop before you started. I gave you the chance to make the decision. It was a test and I failed it. I was so stupid. I don't argue with that. Did you love him? Jasper? Heavens, no. Jasper loved his wife as much as I loved you. We were just friends. I don't understand. Was it lust or what? Gosh, no. It was nothing like that at all. It was more platonic than anything else. Jasper and I were just friends. We had no intention of making our relationship anything more. Then how on earth did the two of you end up at a motel? It's a long story. Well, we still have an hour until we reach Huntsville. Jasper and I worked together for almost a year and discussed a lot of different topics over that time. Through our conversations, it became clear that neither of us had ever made love to anyone other than our spouses. It wasn't that we were unhappy with our marriages. Both of us were satisfied, but it sparked our curiosity. The more we talked about it, the more comfortable we became with the idea. I can't recall who suggested it first, but eventually we started discussing the possibility of making love to each other just to see what it would be like. We agreed it would be a one-time thing, with no strings attached. It was more like two adults playing doctor, or like, I'll show you mine if you show me yours. I know it sounds absurd, but that's how it happened. Did you ever think about the potential downsides? It never crossed our minds. We both reached a point where it felt as casual as going to the movies together. I didn't think you would ever find out, so I believed no one would get hurt. I was wrong, and I am deeply sorry. How did Jasper's wife react? She initially planned to divorce him. I went to see her and explained everything, just like I'm explaining to you. She decided against the divorce, but I don't think their marriage was ever the same. Jasper and I were both fired, but he contested it. The case went to arbitration, where he argued that he didn't violate company policy because we never actually made love. The board didn't buy it. They moved to Baltimore, and I never saw them again. I was relieved when we finally arrived at the house. The long overdue conversation had been stressful, and some parts were tough to hear. I put Daphne in my bedroom while I took the guest room. After making sure she had everything she needed, I said goodnight. I knew there would be more conversations to come, and I hoped they would be more pleasant than today's. The next morning, Daphne had breakfast ready for me, something I hadn't experienced in a long time. Tell me about that date with Jasper, I said. You're an asshole. You know nothing happened, and you know why. I guess I ruined your romantic afternoon. Get real. You understand the situation. Even though he brought wine and strawberries, it wasn't a romantic get-together. Don't make it worse than it was. So, did you guys do anything? Oh yeah. We answered a dozen phone calls and dealt with another dozen knocks on the door. Some nasty bastard had everyone and their brother either calling us or knocking on the door. You didn't have a good time. It was the most miserable half hour of my life. While that biker was trying to break into the room to get to Jasper, I managed to sneak out. When I saw my car was gone, I broke down and started crying. That's when Evelina showed up. You had called my sister, and worse, you had called my mother. She still isn't speaking to me. I'm sorry if I ruined something that matters so much to you. I accept full blame for what I did. It was a rotten thing to do. Oh no, you don't. The blame is all mine. If you think you can come in here 5 years later and take credit for everything that happened, you're crazy. It was my doing, my fault. I am to blame, and don't you ever try and take that away from me. I didn't wallow in misery all these years just for you to pull it out from under me. I still feel partially responsible and should share some of the blame. Don't. When I went into that motel room, I lost all my self-respect. I can never get that back. At least, when you made those phone calls, you saved my virtue. I still have that, and I thank you for it every day. I only wish you could have done something sooner, but I understand now why you couldn't. It's a sad thing, Robert. I love you, and I always have. I never wanted to hurt you, and for that, I am truly sorry. I won't ask for your forgiveness because I don't feel I deserve it. Losing your love and trust has hurt me more than anything else you could do to me. Daphne, you never lost my love. I'm glad to hear that, Robert, but what about the trust? Sorry, that's gone, and I don't know how I can ever get it back. I understand, and that's only fair. What are we going to do for lunch? How about sushi? Sounds great. Are my clothes okay? We had a lovely afternoon together. After lunch, we did some shopping to get Daphne some outfits that were a bit more modern. I even convinced her to buy some lip gloss, nothing too bold. For supper, we kept it light with soup, cheese, and crackers, accompanied by a nice glass of wine. It was heartening to see Daphne slowly returning to her old self. The more we talked, the more comfortable she seemed. Are we going to make love tonight, Robert? She asked. I don't know. I still have some issues, I admitted. What issues? She pressed. Well, I'm afraid that if we make love, I might be thinking about you and Jasper the whole time. I'm a bit anxious because I don't know how it will go. That's bullshit, and you know it, she retorted. How would you know? I countered. I'll tell you how I know. About 30 years ago, when we first started dating, you told me that every time things got private, you fantasized about Pam Kramer, the cheerleader. Do you remember that? Did I really tell you that? I was taken aback. Yes, you did. And for the next 4 or 5 years, every time we made love, all I could think about was that you were imagining Pam Kramer. You're kidding, right? No, damn it, I'm not. Now the shoe is on the other foot and you can't handle it. I had to deal with it, so I don't see why you can't. Well, whom do you think about when you're alone? That's none of your business. Come on, we all fantasize. Who is your dream lover? Okay. Most of the time it's you, even after we separated. Most of the time? Who is it the rest of the time? Do you really want to know? You promise not to laugh? No, I promise I won't laugh. Mel Gibson. You're joking. No, I'm not joking. I've always dreamt about making love with Mel Gibson, and I don't see anything abnormal about that. He's incredibly appealing. Which brings me to another question. Over the last 5 years, who have you fantasized about while relieving your tensions? Mostly you. I still think about you a lot. Same question back to you. What do you mean by mostly? Well, sometimes I think about Jasper and you together. You sick bastard. You fantasize about Jasper and me making love just to get your jollies off. That's awful. Not exactly. After your affair, I was curious why you'd want to be with Jasper. I didn't have any answers, so I assumed he was a better lover than I was. I convinced myself that I had failed as a partner and that you were looking for an upgrade. I used to think about how he would please you. After a while, I found myself getting excited, not because of Jasper making love with you, but because I found it erotic that you were being pleasured, blocking out the fact that it was with another man, even in my fantasies. Okay, we're even. Now deal with it. I'm going to take a shower, and after that, we're going to make love. You can think about Pam Kramer, and I'll think about Mel Gibson. It's settled. Tomorrow morning, we're going to pack my stuff, and I'm moving in with you. Can you handle it? Are we going to get married? No, I can't marry a man who doesn't trust me. Maybe in a couple of years we'll talk about it again. Oh, I see. You want to stay single just in case another guy like Jasper shows up. Bastard. One more remark like that, and I'll smack you upside the head. Now go disconnect the phones. I don't want any interruptions. It only took about an hour to load her things into the car. Soren was right. She really did get rid of almost everything. She sold the leftover furniture to the landlord for $200. As I finished loading the car, she went over to the bakery to tell them she was leaving. Shortly after that, we were on the interstate heading south. I looked over at her, and we both smiled. I have just one more question, and I won't bring it up again. Okay, what is it? Where the hell did you get a Mel Gibson poster? Thank you for watching my video to the end. Don't forget to give me a like if you like this story and subscribe to my channel. Have a great day and see you soon.